Wow, there you go.
Okay, we are back. Welcome everybody back to House Government Operations and Military Affairs for our second part of our Wednesday, January 11th meeting. We have a new draft that is posted to the committee webpage, draft 2.1 of our committee bill we've been working on with open meeting and town meeting day flexibility, extensions of temporary authorities. Tucker Anderson, I will let you take it away with a walk through the latest version of the bill.
Good morning, everyone. Tucker Anderson, Legislative Counsel. You have in front of you draft 2.1 of drafting request 23-0555. I'll orient you to a couple technical changes that happened in the process of drafting this. The first is that, as Representative Higley pointed out, on page 2 in line 19, I believe it was yesterday, I don't think that changed. I needed to add in the day, which is July 1st, and that has happened for this draft 2.1. The second technical thing to orient you all to is that a section has been added to the bill. So the section numbers towards the end have changed. I'll now bring you to the new language within the draft, which is on page 5 in section 3. This is an additional temporary provision, and it suspends the requirement for specific school budget ballot language. So in 16 VSA, section 563 in subdivision 11D, that statute sets out specific language that must be used by a school board on their ballot. They have to use all of the words in that subdivision when they present their budget. Currently, that language is suspended for fiscal years 2025 through 2029. So that means that starting on July 1st, 2024 through June 30th of 2028, perhaps 2029, fiscal years always trip me up, that language is suspended. And what this language in section 3 is doing is suspending it for fiscal year 2024 as well.
Representative Hankin.
Sorry, what is the specific language again that's being suspended?
It is statutory budget proposal language that must be included by every school board when they prepare their school budget ballot.
Do you know what that language is?
I sure do, and maybe I can log into this.
Yeah, I would love to know that because I am a school board member and this is obviously affecting.
For context, while Tucker's picking that up, we're going to hear a little bit in 10 or 15 minutes here from Jeff Francis from Vermont School Boards about this. But my understanding is that one of the reasons, the biggest reason that this language was suspended was the requirement to specifically put in some percentages that are driven by the CLA that don't really make sense given what we're doing with the people waiting. So there's a place where the statutory language requires a report of something that is being modified by the changes in the formula. So it really doesn't provide the public with useful information. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that.
So then probably, thank you. I don't need Tucker to look it up. We'll hear
well,
about
maybe
it.
he can give us the official what it is. We should get that on the record.
So I don't have the Zoom link, but I was prepared. I have the language here for you. So subdivision 11D requires that the first article on the ballot shall state the following. Shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend blank dollars, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. It is estimated that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in education spending of blank dollars per equalized pupil. This projected spending per equalized pupil is blank percent higher/lower. I suppose that's a choose your own adventure, and spending for the current year. So that precise language has to be used on the school budget ballot. Section 3 suspends that for fiscal year 2024, which will start July 1st, 2023.
Okay, thank you. Yep, that's what I thought it was.
And a procedural note, in case you're worried about us getting a little over our skis here, I have been in touch with members of the Ways and Means Committee who would like to see this in our bill as a vehicle in the realm of this town meeting stuff. Putting this in our bill will, by, I think it's House Rule 35A, mean that this has to go to Ways and Means. So our colleagues there will have to take a look at this bill as well. Should we choose to include this provision in the bill. So does anybody have any questions for Tucker about this language? What it means? Is there anything else we should know? And everything else is the language that we saw yesterday.
Everything else is the language that you saw yesterday. Yes.
Representative Markey.
Is it too soon to offer a motion?
I do want us to, I would love to move this post haste, but I do, we did invite Jeff Francis in, so I at least want to get his testimony in, make sure the committee has a chance to give last thoughts, and then it is my hope that we can move this morning so that drafting ops has an opportunity to put it in the official bill format, and we'll introduce this on the floor.
Just want to keep our hardworking and
I love that.
humble committee moving forward.
Your desire for us to keep our reputation, Representative Wiki.
High bar we set.
We've got big shoes to fill here. So I know Tucker has to get up to Ways and Means. So if there are no other questions for him, I will release you from clutches. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. I hope it's good.
Great. So while we're, Andrea, and as efficient as she always is, has let our next witness know we're ready a few minutes early, while we're waiting to see if Mr. Francis is able to get on a couple of minutes early. If we're able to get this out this morning, then we will not be meeting at 1 o'clock. I'd like to come back at 2. So we're going to be on the floor at 3. I'd like to come back at 2 for 2 reasons. One, I want to have a short discussion just about committee logistical stuff. I think we have a little bit of an update on the room to offer, and just thinking ahead to, about priorities, and if anybody wanted to bring anything up in particular, questions about how we do our business, how we're going, just want to give everybody an opportunity to officially check in. And then after that, there's, I think, an opportunity for folks to, we're going to have Shadi from legislative IT come and make sure people's devices are hooked up to the printer and things like that. So you have the full access to all of the IT amenities in the room. And then we'll be on the floor at 3. So that's kind of what the afternoon looks like, Jay.
But is it still true that it's like 30 cents more per page to print in committee than it is at the print shop? I'm serious.
No. It's like cost.
The cost to everybody. That's a great question that we should ask. I was not aware of
And
that.
what I typically do is if it's like 1 to 5 pages, I'll hit this. If I'm like 10 or more, I shoot it down to the copy room because it is way more efficient and less like noise wise here.
You gotta get these pages to work.
Yeah. Yeah, text messaging really did like.
Pages running the pages.
Sorry, banter there.
Ooh, maybe we got to get you a green jacket, then you can go out there.
No.
From the dog.
Do we know, I'm sorry, since we're talking about printers, do we know what that one is called if we want to print to it? They all have different names. I know if you want to print from the copy room, you email it to the copy room. There's a legislative address.
That's gonna come up when.
Oh, when Shadi comes
That's what he's
in?
gonna do. He's gonna connect us to that. That's
sorry.
exactly what's happening.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the whole point of the exercise. And any of the new members who don't have their
Great.
devices hooked up to the secure members Wi-Fi, he'll do that.
Yeah, I just thought that.
I gotta get up to this level again.
All right.
You're too easy too.
Feel like your name's up there.
I can't see.
So, we got done our walkthrough pretty quickly. I want to welcome Jeff Francis into the room, give you a second to catch your breath. But when you are ready, I'll invite you to join us at the end of the table to talk a little bit. And I so appreciate you coming in last minute about this additional language that we were considering including in our town meeting day authority extension bill.
Thank you. It was rather hasty. With deep appreciation, I'm Jeff Francis. I'm the Executive Director of the School Superintendent's Association. And I've been in touch with a few legislators since last week with regard to the requirement in 16 VSA Section 11D, which is prescriptive language for how warning articles for school district budgets are presented to voters. And the history really goes back to an era before now when there was a specific interest on the part of the General Assembly, I think, in illuminating the cause and effect of school budget increases to tax rates in communities. Last year, when the General Assembly deliberated and passed what became Act 127, the so-called waiting bill, there was a decision that was made by the General Assembly to suspend that language requirement for fiscal year FY 25 to 29. In the fall, we were working with the school business officials on their understanding of Act 127, and they started to raise questions about the purpose of that required language in the first place. And the reason they did is because the language as it's prescribed really only cites two factors in the calculation of tax rates as they relate to school district budgets. One is the total budget to be approved. And the second is the year-over-year spending or the year-over-year increase in education spending. So for a voter to look at that ballot language and see that there was an increase in ed spending from one year to the next, intuitively, one would think that their tax rate would automatically go up. But because there's other factors that play into that calculation, namely the CLA and the yield, it doesn't always turn out that way. So in an era where we're interested in transparency, we're interested in supporting schools. We know that there are immense pressures on local spending generally, but also school district spending that are attributable to COVID as well as inflation, as well as other pressures. The business managers posed the question to me, why would we not ask the General Assembly to suspend that language requirement, not only for FY 25 through 29, but also for FY 24? So I did a little bit of work on that with VASBO in terms of rationale and had contacted Representative Kornheiser, who, as you know, is the chair of Ways and Means, and Representative Conlon, who is the chair of Education, in a very preliminary outreach. Then Bill Kimball, who's the superintendent up in Maple Run Supervisory Union, got out in front of me and contacted your chair, Representative McCarthy, who asked good questions along the lines of what I've articulated. So I sent a communication that sort of detailed the interest in suspending that language to Chairs Conlon and Kornheiser, which I brought with me, that sort of lays out with more specificity the concern. And I sent that on Monday morning this week because I was waiting for the General Assembly to be seated last week. I know that you were organizing, and I was waiting for a response from them when the call came from Andrea this morning, like, can you get over here to talk about it? So the simple request is that you give consideration to suspending that language, not only for FY 24, not only for FY 25 through 29, but also FY 24 because of the reasons that I've attempted to explain to you to this point.
So before I have the committee weigh in with questions, I wanted to let you know, because you may not have seen the language that we're considering adding to our committee bill, that the bulk of which we've been talking about for the last couple of days is about town meeting day date, ballot flexibility, and open meeting law. This piece does not impact the language that has the fiscals 25 to 29. It's just a new piece of language that does the exact same thing, but for fiscal 24, which would accomplish, I think, what you've asked us to
Right, completely. And I appreciate it very much. And they will too well, number one, we appreciate the fact that you're discussing it, period. And if you act on it favorably, even more so from local school officials, because as you know, they're under immense pressure. And that language today didn't make sense to them. And I think they're right about that.
It does show in some districts that especially have had a pretty significant CLA change, a number that doesn't really reflect the reality. It doesn't give the voter very meaningful information.
Right.
Representative Higley.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. I guess the way you explained it, can you explain to me why we shouldn't do it indefinitely?
I think you should do it indefinitely. The reason that we focused on this year really speaks to the suspension, and the reason for the suspension, and you could check with the Ways and Means Committee members who were in the last biennium about it, but because the change of the weights was going to alter the understanding of how the education funding system worked in general, they took action for years 24 through 29 to suspend the excess spending penalty, which was another cost suppressor. And when I reviewed the language, I couldn't understand why this provision started in 25. But to answer your question really specifically, the language will make no better sense in FY 30 than it does right now. So I think that a suspension, a repeal does make sense. But in terms of the way the legislative process works, it seemed to make sense just for 24 so that we could avoid getting into arguments that are going to go all the way out to FY 30. But I agree with you that repeal does make sense because the language does not make sense.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions for Mr. Francis? I think we have delved as far as I ever want to delve in this committee into Ways and Means territory. I did that with the blessing of Representative Kornheiser. I just want that on the record that
And also
we're not
Waits.
going rogue.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So Waits, yes. Property tax, we're coming right up against the edge of things.
Give me jurisdictional anxiety.
Yes, we're just all playing very nicely in the sandbox together here in the House. So, Mr. Francis, thank you very much.
Thank you. I really very much appreciate it. And when the time comes, I'll convey both thanks to you and also acknowledgement to the field of the work that your committee is doing. We thought that budget adjustment might be the only vehicle, if it was a vehicle at all. But the fact that you're acting so quickly it's amazing to me that I'm sitting here on this week. So thank you very much.
I think what you're seeing is a couple of new chairs just really trying to impress people.
So far, you're succeeding with me. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Makes us look good too.
Yeah, so people are seeing us, maybe we'll be the hardworking and quite efficient.
Collaborators.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
So I want to get a sense from the committee if there's any further work we need to do before we move this bill. Representative Higley.
Mr. Chair, if you could just explain again, the scenario of us having possession of the bill and suspending rules and moving along. Now with Ways and Means, we're going to at least extend things another day, correct?
Right. So in my dream scenario, after a very brief conversation with the clerk about what our options were, where I was weighing how much do I really want to include this language if it's going to slow down the other things. The scenario that I would like to work with your leadership and all House leadership on would be to have the bill moved out of our committee this morning. Then that draft that we've approved will go to drafting ops and be put in official bill form. The bill will then be introduced and under Rule 35A, the speaker today could just refer it to Ways and Means, I believe, without any suspension rules. So first reading gets referred to committee, no big deal. The next step, when it comes out of Ways and Means, all of the notice days that would make it, 3 legislative days, when Ways and Means votes it out tomorrow, I would assume, if folks were amenable, we could ask for a rule suspension that would take the bill up off the notice calendar, and then a rule suspension to put it in all stages of passage. And that way we could actually get the bill over to the Senate this week. Which that's about as fast as anything ever goes around here. But I think if we're ready to move it, it'll be in the hands of the speaker and Ways and Means to do the work that they need to do. And I think that Representative Kornheiser is already talking to her committee about this ballot language issue.
Thanks for that explanation.
All those parliamentary team meetings and reading Mason's manual, I'm pretty good at this, but Betsy Ann Rask, our capable clerk, is kind of the ultimate authority. All right. So barring any objection, Representative Mrowicki.
Would you like a motion?
I would be very happy to entertain that.
I'm gonna move that we move Bill 23055, draft 2.1. On elections, local elections, and the annual municipal meetings and alternative procedures.
I'll second it.
So Representative Mrowicki has moved that we accept draft 2.1 and recommend it to the House on behalf of our committee. Is the clerk prepared to to call the roll?
Yeah.
All right. So Representative Boyden, take it away.
Representative Byron.
Yes.
Representative Boyden, yes. Representative Hango.
Yes.
Representative Morgan.
Yes.
Representative Hooper of Burlington.
Yes.
Representative Mrowicki.
Yes.
Representative Chase.
Yes.
Representative Waters Evans.
Yes.
Representative Hooper of Randolph.
Yes.
Representative Nugent.
Nugent, sorry. Yes.
Representative Higley.
Yes.
Representative McCarthy.
Chair votes yes.
Yes.
And would you please announce the result of the vote?
The result is 12 yes, 0 no, all present.
That is really excellent. Thank you all for the good work on this bill. I believe that concludes our business for this morning, if I'm not mistaken. And I will see you all back here at 2 o'clock, and then we'll be on the floor at 3.